said, out of the assembly area, we've got two great speakers back to back. Continue to encourage you guys to soak in these folks that are going to be in front of you. Jot things down. Take notes from Brock Tobler, who's just a year older than you guys. I looked at his phone last night while I was sitting here. He probably had 100 golden nuggets that he took last year as a delegate, just like you guys. Some of the stuff I'm reading, I know I didn't say all those things. But I took notes, some of the things that I saw that people said last year. So if you're taking notes from Mr. Hargett, Secretary of State, or General Bolden, with your phone, I'm fine with that. Phone's out for any other reason, you don't have an issue. If you're taking notes, let's go with that. No said from me. I'm going to bring up Mr. Amos Powers, one of our senior counselors. He's going to do an introduction for our Secretary of State, Hargett. Come on up, Amos. Let's give him a hand, y'all.
So here in Tennessee, elections are overseen by the Secretary of State and county election commissions to ensure transparency and efficiency. I'm honored to be serving my third term as commissioner on the Putnam County Election Commission, a role responsible for managing elections, enforcing election laws, maintaining voting equipment, and appointing our administrator of elections. Because of that, it's a privilege to introduce our speaker this morning, whose department oversees my work and that of all of the county election commissions. Secretary Hargett serves as Tennessee's 37th Secretary of State and has served since 2009, being re-elected by the Tennessee General Assembly. As head of the Department of State, he manages over 300 employees, and under his leadership, initiatives like online voter registration, Go Vote Tennessee mobile app have improved accessibility and civic engagement for voters across Tennessee. Secretary Hargett is a nationally recognized leader, a proud Tennessean, and the son of retired Major General Gus Hargett. A note to delegates, we will be electing our own Secretary of State for Tennessee Boys State on Thursday by the General Assembly. So delegates, please join me in welcoming Tennessee Secretary of State, Trey Hargett.
Commissioner, thank you for the great introduction. Colonel Reed, Dr. Owens, thank you very much for the hospitality today and the opportunity to come spend a few minutes with these 9 young men who represent the future of our great state. Now, as Tennessee's Secretary of State, you heard a little bit about our responsibilities in Board of Elections. We also publish, I think you have your own blue book here at Boys State. We have the blue book we publish. Ours is a little thicker. It's 900 pages of information regarding state government, the history of our great state. And it's more or less an almanac of state government as well. So if you didn't know anything about Tennessee state government, you could pick up that Tennessee Blue Book, and you could pretty quickly figure out how to navigate the bureaucracy of state government. We have that in a responsibilities list. We also work with businesses throughout the state of Tennessee. Hundreds of thousands of businesses are registered with us, nonprofit organizations. We have 15 administrative law judges that hear cases that involve disputes between board members and their respective boards that govern them, or citizens who want to have a fair and impartial hearing regarding a dispute over a right that they feel like they lost or a blues they feel like they lost. There's a lot of things we do. I'm going to date myself a little bit. There's probably very few of us who remember this in this room, but there used to be a cereal called Life Cereal, and there would be a little boy named Mikey, and there's this brother, sister, and little brother sitting at this table, and the older brother and sister trying to figure out what this cereal is, this Life Cereal is. And somebody said, one of the kids says, well, give it to Mikey, the little brother, he'll eat anything. Well, we're kind of like the Mikey of state government, we'll eat anything. Whenever something doesn't fit anywhere else inside state government, they say, well, give it to the Secretary of State's office over there, and they'll mind going to do that. So that's how we've wound up taking over a lot of different responsibilities over the years. There's a few things that we have taken off and gone and done the last few years. We've decided our state wasn't doing a very good job of helping do civics outreach, civics engagement. So I created an Office of Civics Engagement, our office, where we do mock elections and essay contests and design curriculum in our schools to better integrate civics into the curriculum of our schools. We started a Safe at Home program to protect victims of domestic abuse, of stalking, of human trafficking. And we have it's an address confidentiality program where they can use our office to collect their mail so that they don't have to have their office in publicly available situations. And we also recently started a Tennessee Business Trafficking program where we're engaging nonprofit organizations and businesses across the state of Tennessee about how they can engage in the fight against human trafficking, which is the second fastest growing criminal enterprise in the country. And so we're trying to train people across the state on what human trafficking looks like, how to spot it, and then know what to do when they see it. So today we've engaged over 300 businesses just in the last few months to train their employees and learn how that they can engage in the fight against human trafficking. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be with you today. Now I have a question for you, and it's just a show of hands. How many of you, when you were told you were selected for Boys State, had no idea what that meant? Thank you for your honesty. So I ran into a longtime friend of mine at the gym yesterday, and he said, "Hey Trey," he said, "what do you know about Boys State?" I said, "Fantastic organization." I said, I've been somewhat involved with it, had the opportunity to speak over the years. I said, unfortunately, when I was a junior in high school, I wasn't selected. And he says, "My son got selected, has no idea what it is." I said, "Man, let me tell you," I said, "it's going to put rocket fuel in his engine." I said, "He is going to come back to you a different young man and is going to have a passion about things that he wasn't passionate about." He's got a network of students around the state that they're going to keep in touch with one another. They are going to be colleagues. They're going to be people who are going to rise up together and lead this state one of these days. I believe this is one of the best leadership training tools that exist in our state today for young people. So I love what you said, and I hope that I say something that is worthy of taking at least one nugget from today. But, be a sponge this week. I encourage you to soak in this, immerse yourself in this, and take advantage of the opportunities being given to you. And you might think it's kind of crazy when I say this. I was involved in a similar organization when I was in college, where it brought people from across the state together. We were involved in what's called the Tennessee Intercollegiate State Legislature. Some of you may be involved in YMCA Youth in Government, perhaps at your respective schools. And there are still people to this day who are some of my best friends, my closest colleagues, even those who are on the opposite side of the aisle from me. But we had this common experience. And what you're going to see is because of the experiences you're getting this week, there are people that you're going to know across the state that whenever you get ready to do something one of these days, whether it's you're trying to grow your business, whether you're thinking about moving to a different part of the state, whether you're running for office, what have you, you probably have a friend somewhere because of this experience. So I would also encourage you, don't let this week be about just this week. Let it be about context. Start this week, but you can continue to maintain those throughout the rest of your high school, your college career, and the rest of your lives. Because if we can keep the spirit of this week in mind, I will tell you, there is absolutely nothing that can hold this state back. We've got a lot of awesome things going on in our state. We're one of the least taxed states in the country. We're one of the least indebted states in the country. Our K-12 system of education, our higher education system, are on the rise and the envy of many other states. We have people who are flocking from across the country, who are moving here to Tennessee because they recognize that Tennessee is a place where they can come and unlock their full potential, that they can enjoy freedom and liberty here. And those things don't just magically happen. They happen because we have good leadership in place, but they also happen because good leadership is on the rise. And good leadership on the rise is in this room. And we need you to be prepared to grab that mantle of leadership one of these days and make sure that our state continues to be the envy of so many other states in our great nation. I want to talk to you a little bit about my path. about how I got to where I am. I did not just wake up one day and somebody said, hey, Trey, you ought to be Secretary of State. Here you go. And I try to explain this to my boys. I've got a 22-year-old right now who is serving our country. He is stationed in California in the United States Army. I have a 17-year-old student who will be a senior next year. And one of the things I tell them is, things just don't magically happen. You got to help go make those things happen. So guys, I would say, when I was your age, I was the student council president at Ripley High School. I was the paper staff editor. I was on the annual staff. I was in the debate club. If you look at my high school annual, you would see this long list of things, probably longer than anybody else in the school, about all the things that I did. And probably that represents probably many of you in this room today. And guys, when I graduated high school, I was tired. And I was ready to go to college, and I thought, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get my 4-year degree, and I'm not doing anything on campus. All I'm going to do is go to class, go back and study. And probably like many of you in this room, we're just really not built that way. And so it took me all of about a semester and a half to realize that, hey, there's a lot of things that I would like to go do, and I think I can help make this campus better. And I would read the campus newspaper and thought, God, there's a bunch of yo-yos who are in charge of student government. So I ran for the SGA Senate. And I really didn't know anybody. Got lucky and met a few people and wound up winning a seat in the SGA Senate. And I just said, well, I'm going to serve 1 year. I really need to go back and go to class all the time. And I just really did refocus on my studies. I had a good GPA, but just thought, I'm going to do it for this 1 year. Well, that didn't quite happen that way. I became the SGA president the next year. And lo and behold, became the SGA president my senior year. And wound up being the head of the College of Republicans on campus. I was the governor of the Tennessee State Legislature. I was the president of all of the student government presidents in the state of Tennessee. And it just wound up being a lot different than I expected. And I always had this passion for public service, because I believe that any of us can be about making ourselves better, but all of us should be about trying to figure out how do we make others around us better. I mean, it doesn't take a special person to make themselves better. It takes special people who will look at the world around and try and think about, how can I make life better for others? How can I be a difference maker? How can I take one situation and help make it better for somebody else? And I think one of the things, especially that we fall into this trap a lot of times, is thinking, well, gosh, I'm just one person. I can't really do something about that. I can't really make a difference about this issue or that issue or this person's situation. My challenge for you, and I didn't come up with this statement, but I was listening to a podcast by Pastor Andy Stanley out of Georgia one day. And he said, do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Okay? So sometimes it's just starting small and figuring out how do I make a difference in the life of one other person. And then, once you've done it for that one person, why stop there? Why not try to figure out how to do it for two? And then why not four? And grow that exponentially. And also along the way, if you do that, you'll see that others will come along beside you and want to be a part of that, be inspired by that. And that's how you can really get things to grow in a fashion where you are really making a difference. It goes well beyond what you're capable of doing individually, but collectively you can do so much more. And so guys, I mentioned you got all the things I've done in college, and always thought I'd run for office at some point. And in fact, when I was in college, I told my college professors, I said, well, my intention is to be governor of the state of Tennessee one of these days. Don't know if that will still happen. I don't know if it will or not. But one of the things that we talked about during the few years after college, my wife and I, we always knew that at some point I would run. I was 27 years old. We had just moved into a house. And I plugged up my phone, and my phone started ringing the next morning. And people asking me to run for the state legislature. And the incumbent had decided he wasn't going to run again. He later decided to get back in the race after he saw several other people get in. It all had to win a crowded race. I'll get back in. I had people who were for me, and then when he got back in, he says, well, Trey, don't worry about it. Not everybody wins their first race. It's okay. It's okay to lose your first race. I I wasn't built that way. I don't go into a race thinking, well, I just accept losing. And we ran a poll 3 weeks away from election day. We ran a poll, and I was 13 points down in that poll. The incumbent had 33%, I had 20%, 2 other people had 7 to 6%. But there's still a bunch undecided. So I really had a decision to make. I could say, well, I'm going to lose. There's no way I can make up that gap. Or I could run as hard as possible and see what would happen and give it everything I had. I thought I'd give it everything I had to start with, but I just knew for the next 3 weeks if I would just give it everything I had, I would have nothing to be ashamed of. And guys, I'll just tell you, whenever I've coached baseball or basketball or whatever I'm trying to get my boys to do, or talk to our folks at work about, we've got 300 plus employees in the Secretary of State's office, I'm a firm believer that if you give your absolute best, then you have no regrets. You know, that if I could use a sports expression, leave it all in the field. You know, I'm a marathoner as well. You know, I don't want, when I get to the end of a marathon, I don't want to think, man, I had a little bit more to give. I want to give everything I can during that race. So the last 3 weeks of that race, we went back to every single door in the district. We called every single household in that district. And what was a 13-point disadvantage 3 weeks out became a 19-point victory on election day. Just by getting out and working hard. Now, I would tell you, a lot of people can have excuses about why they can't get certain things done. But I would tell you what each and every one of you owns is you own yourself and you own your ability to work hard. That's one thing you can control. And that's one of the things I would share with you has been the secret to my success over the years. Whatever success I've had is that I have never regretted working hard towards something. That's something that I can control that no one can take away from me. It's my ability to go pursue whatever goal it is I'm pursuing. Guys, I got to the legislature, really thought, I set out to serve no more than 10 years in the legislature. I was, toward the end of my tenure, I was twice elected the top Republican in the House of Representatives. That was also another race that when I ran for Republican leader, the people told me, Trey, you know, you're just too young, and don't feel bad. There's no way you're going to beat the guy who's the current leader. That's just not going to happen. That's just kind of silly. I said, well, we'll just see what happens. And lo and behold, we had the election, and I became the Republican leader that others thought that I couldn't win. And guys, by the way, a key to all that was along the way, I made sure I tried to be respectful of everybody. Even when they disagreed with me, I tried to learn how to disagree without being disagreeable. And we live in a war right now, especially because of these phones, that you have the opportunity to be offended at any given moment. And instead of trying to figure out how you're going to be offended about everything, try to figure out, okay, sometimes you just need to shut your eyes and think, hey, I need to try and figure out where that person's coming from. I'm not telling you to sacrifice your core convictions, but if you ever want to be someone who can persuade others to your point of view, then you've got to at least be willing to take a second and try and figure out where they're coming from. I listened to Lamar Alexander say this, and I've heard him say it, or Howard Baker say it. Now Bill Haslam and Bill Redison, former governors of our state, have a podcast out, you know, and it talks about how the other person might actually be right. Is we should not be so set in everything that we have that we cannot stop and consider that the other person has a point of view that deserves being heard. Now, guys, I'm not saying sacrifice your core convictions. If they're still your core convictions, they will withstand whatever nonsense somebody else may put toward those and try and get you to sacrifice those. You need to know what's at your core. I'm hopeful that some of what you will pick up this week is further going to define your core and what you're about. And that's one of the things that I tried to practice during my time in public office, is try to listen to other people who come from a different place than me, even when they're screaming at me, even when they got their finger in my face, even when they're going on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever it is, and they're telling my body what a horrible person I am. You know, take a second and think, okay, where are they coming from? What can I learn from this? And guys, in every challenge, in every circumstance, you have the opportunity to learn something. And guys, sometimes, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, sometimes it's not very fun learning those lessons. But some of the most valuable lessons I have learned are those times when the chips were down and either I made a mistake or things just didn't go the way that I thought they were going to go. And I got to think about, okay, what am I about? What am I made of here? What am I going to learn from this circumstance? So I told you about my time through the legislature. And as I got through the legislature, I said I was serving over 10 years. I stuck to that. I retired. Whenever my wife didn't tell me this before I made the decision to retire. She told me the day I decided to is at the time my 2-year-old son was seen walking down our driveway, and she asked him where he was going. He said, "I'm going to Nashville to see my daddy." And I was ready to be at home and be a father. And not long after I had left the legislature, actually less than a year, I went back to full-time in the private sector. I was vice president of a public trading company. The lieutenant governor of the state, who had been a friend of mine, still a friend of mine, his chief of staff called and said, "Hey, we would like to talk to you about maybe being on what's called the Tennessee Regulatory Authority. Now it's called the Public Service Commission and Public Utilities Commission of the state of Tennessee. It oversees public and trading privately held utilities in the state. It's a 6-year term." And I said, "Well, I'll think about that." They said, "Well, we're not promising it to you. We'd just like to know if you'd be interested. We're trying to put together a list of names." A couple weeks later, long story short, they ultimately called me and asked me to serve. And I thought, I'll go back to state government. I'll serve 6 years. And then I'll go back into the private sector full time. I'll do my part and I'll move on. And less than a year into that, I got a phone call from the current, he was at the time, the Republican leader in the House of Representatives. He says, Trey, a lot of us in the legislature think you'd be a fantastic Secretary of State if Republicans gained the majority in 2008 elections. And I just kind of laughed because I had never thought about being Secretary of State of Tennessee. Now I'm in turn. And when he said that to me, and I said, "There's a lot of work that's got to be done if that happens." And I said, "If you think I'm the best person to help you lead and help make this state a better place to live in," I said, "then y'all select me." I said, "But if you have somebody better, go pick them by all means." And I try to take ego out of it. And I have found that when I'm successful, usually it comes whenever I'm able to set my ego aside and let it not be about me. If I make it about me, I'm losing. We are losing. If I can make it about what's the betterment for everybody else, and especially the betterment of the state of Tennessee, that's when we're successful. Well, on the whole, Republicans gained the majority of the legislature in 2008. And Lieutenant Governor, I told you about him being my friend. I talked to him on election night, and I just knew he was calling me to say, "Trey, I think you'd be a fantastic Secretary of State." And instead he calls me and says, "There's somebody else that I really think we ought to elect. And hope you understand that." And I said, "Hey, I'm for you. Whatever you need me to do to help you make that happen." I said, "I'll help you make that happen." Went to bed that night. My wife asked me, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, so-and-so's going to be Secretary of State." And she said, "You good with that?" I said, "I'm great with that." I slept like a baby. A few days into that, I began to realize that, hey, that things weren't going like Lieutenant Governor wanted them to go. And I called Lieutenant Governor early one morning. He's in East Tennessee. And I called him at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 here. And had a conversation with him. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" He said, "Oh, it's going good, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Well, how's this race going up? Is this person going to win?" He said, "I don't know if that's going to work out or not." And I said, "Do you help her about make phone calls for her?" I said, "You'll get call people for it." He said, "You would do that?" I said, "If you wanted me to." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll do that." And he said, "Wow." He said, "I really can't." He said, that'd be great." He says, "Well, let me think about that." And I said, "You think about that?" And I said, "I'll just leave you with this thought too." I said, "You can think about it. I don't think it's going to matter." And I said, "And if it's not going to matter and you decide that, I would like to basically start making phone calls on behalf of myself." And he said, "Trey, you ought to start making phone calls now. You start making on behalf of yourself today. And so I started working hard, practicing the same things I did back when I was in the legislature, working hard, and started making the phone calls to every member of the legislature and asking for their vote. And when I asked for their vote, I didn't say, hey, vote for me, I'm your friend. Vote for me, I've known you a long time. I said, vote for me if you believe that I am the person whose skills and abilities help serve this state the best. I said, if you vote for me just because we're friends, I said, that's the wrong reason to elect me. I said, this is a serious matter. I said, vote for me because you believe I'm the best candidate. And I did that with confidence, and I also did that putting my full trust in the men and women who have been elected in the legislature. Once again, setting that ego aside. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of longtime friends who disappointed me during all that, and I had to be prepared to hear them say to me, Trey, I'm not going to vote for you because I believe that I'm going to vote for so-and-so because we owe them something. I owe them this. And I said, you don't owe me anything. I said, so, and I would encourage you, whatever path you pursue in life, and it's hard because a lot of times, especially in today's society, we have an entitled society. We believe somebody owes us something. They owe me that. They owed it to me to vote for me. They owed me that job. They owed me that opportunity to do X, Y, and Z. Don't go through life feeling like everybody else owes you something. Be the kind of person who's worked to deserve that trust and that respect and that opportunity. Don't leave it up to that other person. Try and take care of it. Try and do everything you can in your power to make sure that you earn that opportunity when it's in front of you. 8 other people ran for Secretary of State. You had to get a majority of the Republicans in the House and Senate to be able to get the Republican nomination. 8 other people ran out on the first ballot. And I went into it with the right mindset, knowing that I had done everything possible to make that happen. And it wasn't about me, it was about serving our fellow Tennesseans. Well, it still wasn't done. I had the Republican nomination sewn up. But, and some of you, gosh, it just hits me that you were still in diapers when this happened. I've been around for a while. And the Republicans were supposed to elect a Speaker of the House the day before I was going to be elected. And one Republican joined the 49 Democrats to elect himself the Speaker of the House. And then all the deal making started. And I had friends from the other side of the aisle who came to me and said, Trey, said, if we've got some Democrats that will vote for you, if you will get some of your Republican friends to vote for the Democrats. And I said, no deal. I said, they said, you don't understand. We're still going to make you Secretary of State. It's just that the others won't get elected. I said, no deal. I'm not putting myself above anybody else to make that happen. I said, that's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. I said, I'm not going to sacrifice to other people to help myself. And I had to stand in front of the Republicans the morning of my election. I didn't have to. I chose to. And tell them that they couldn't vote for the other 2, don't vote for me. And it all worked out. The 3 of us got elected. And throughout time, I have found that whenever I put others first and put myself second, then things tend to work out a lot better in the long run. Sometimes they don't work out in the short run, but in the long run, they work out. For those of you who study the Bible, I'm a firm believer in I like this verse because it's short, it's easy for me to remember. He must increase, I must decrease. And so I found that if I can put him here and think about what he wants instead of what I want to do, things work out a whole lot better in my life. And so here I am now, 17 years in, and we've got a lot of successes. We've also got a lot of failures. I'm grateful that more people recognize the successes that we've had in building one of the best departments of state government, but we're still motivated each and every day about how can we better serve our fellow Tennesseans to make this the best possible state that we can live in each and every day, so that you and your generation have the opportunities that I had growing up and even more. I really believe that when I'm in rooms like this, and I see your focus and I see your drive, and I know that many of you probably don't even recognize what others back home saw in you to put you in this room today. You are in this room today because at least one, if not more people, back in your local community thought, I see something in them. They've got leadership potential in them. They're the kind of person I would like to see taking that next step with their leadership skills and what that can mean for our community back home. And the real challenge I give to each and every one of you is don't waste this opportunity. Let it be a spark and go back home and be a light to others and let them see the difference in you and what this week has meant to you and how you can change the course of your community, how you can change the world around you. The last thing I want to say is the world's got a lot of problem identifiers out there. Everybody wants to gripe about something. Everybody wants to complain. Everybody can tell you what's wrong. Everybody can say, look at that over there. See that over there? There's another problem. This room needs to be filled with problem solvers. Don't be a problem identifier. Be a problem solver. Take the challenge of seeing the problems that we're facing, small and big, and figuring how you would fix those problems. And I hope that some of the best things that happen to you this week are not necessarily about the curriculum that you're involved in. I hope it's about the one-on-one, the small group conversations you're having at meals and at night, and about the friendships you're having, and you're realizing that, well, gosh, I met this person who's all the way across the state from me, and they have some of the same concerns about these things that I do, and if we can just work together and fix some of those things, that's really what's going to make a difference, and that's really what the beauty of programs like this are all about. Guys, thank you very much for your time and courtesy. I'm glad to join you.
Secretary Hargett signed 5 books, blue books, real blue books, the Almanac of Tennessee, as he said. And what we're going to do is we're going to give those to the top 5 scorers. They take a test on Thursday. We'll give those to the top 5 test scorers signed by Secretary Hargett on Thursday. So thank you for your time. I got something for you. This is, I told you last night, real men, case 9. So we got a Boys State case 9 for you, just right over there. We hope you can display that and remember us. We do appreciate your time.